Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining this webinar. My name is Mario Kupits, and I'm part of Turpex. Turpex is a company that is specialized in OpenText products, VIM and ECM. And this is strategic choice because we only specialize in those two products in order to be really good in managing those products. As you can see on the intro slides, we are represented in a lot of cities around the world, but we have our headquarters in Denmark. So first thing that we touch upon when talking about running a successful VIM project is about the mindset. And this is mostly about being pragmatic in our thinking. The aim of, we believe at least, the aim of each and every implementation is to get the benefits very fast and to get the faster time to value. In order to do that, we do have to understand the nature of the invoice process. We all know that invoices are liabilities and eventually they will have to be paid. So the question is, how much time do we want to spend on managing these invoices? And we have to work out how we can simplify and automate the process. Because frankly speaking, when invoices are working with invoices, for anyone who has dealt with AP processes, it is a percentage game. There is no change which will go from 20% of automation to 80% of automation. So you will have to work through and learn how to slice the elephant. And this is basically the thinking that we need to have when talking about the implementation. We have very often customers who get very much stuck into, okay, I want to do 100% automation, and then we are basically stuck in countless hours of workshops. On the other hand, what we recommend is that we take it as a percentage game. So we say, let's take proportion of vendors. So who are your biggest impact vendors? And then, for example, if bank details are missing on those vendors, how do we automate this part? After we automate this part, how do we go to the next one? Of course, this is then dependent on the track of the implementation approach that we will talk about next. So if we talk about the implementation approaches, in general, we have two options that we are considering. Of course, there can be some mix in between, but these are the two let's say, opposed options. Yeah? First option is basically the standardized product. And here, what we are offering is that, and what our approach is that we actually come to the customer with a finished FTT based on our best practices and the best practices of OpenText. So, because currently we are running more than 25 projects, and we have seen things. So, in order to speed up the entire implementation, we say to the customer, you don't have to reinvent the wheel again. Just hop on the wave, and we will take you to the other side. Pros of this approach, aside from lower cost, is also really faster time to go online with the new solution. And of course, this is suitable primarily for the customers who are new to VIM, so who are just exploring what VIM can actually do. Of course, if you are not understanding what you should actually, how you should at all adjust your thinking with this new software, then it makes sense that you bring on board somebody who has seen this working in a number of clients and who can tell you how to achieve the results that you want. So as you can see on the slide, here we start with our design document, and then we basically just develop the system based on this design document. After that, we are of course having the review session with the customer, and then some minor adjustments depending on their feedback, and then we usually start testing very soon after that process is done. And since we are talking primarily about the standard product, cost is relatively low for the developments, and of course also we are very much in line with the SAP standard. So of course the one consideration to make about this approach is that it takes you some more time in being in hypercare mode, because of course product is standard, so you might discover when you run your invoices through the process that you might need some more time to capture all the variations, because we did not go through the process in the actual design workshops. Another approach is basically just the opposite of this one, and this is the customized product approach, where we take the configuration still that we have, but then we do the functional design workshops. So we listen to the customers and their requirements before we start building the solution. This gives us an opportunity to carefully consider all the requirements of the customer, and based on this adjust the solution in the way that customer really needs it. Yeah? Here, pro is definitely that we have higher chance to meet the customer expectations, and that's definitely a good thing. Let's say on the downside, there is definitely higher cost associated to this kind of implementation, because it usually means more developments, because the more time that you have to discuss, to basically think about the process, the more ideas you will have, and that's perfectly fine. But again, it has to be aligned with all the expectations. This approach is also more suitable for the customers who are already familiar with VIM and who maybe want to do another implementation, or for the customers where previous implementation simply didn't work out, and they know exactly what didn't work out. And as you can see, we are starting with the functional design, and after which, of course, we do have a functional design document, and based on and we do, of course, do sign off of this functional design document just to be aligned with the customer. What do we really want? But then when we start the build, we are not disappearing for, let's say here in the slide, it's period of 3 months. We are not disappearing for a period of 3 months, but we do define buckets of developments, or we call them sprints. So in each of these increments, we are then demoing at the end of the period that we define together with the customer. So and after we demo each of the sprints, then we gather the feedback, and at the end of the day, or at the end of the build phase, we end up with much better product because we have been refining the solution on the way. This approach is also then decreasing the number of incidents that we see during UAT, and also it very often means a shorter hypercare period, because we have done all the, let's say, troubleshooting and investigations up front. These are the two general approaches, and we will come back with more evidences in terms of how each of the approaches is beneficial, because of course, I mean, they all have their pros and cons. But then before we go there, I would also like to focus on the what are the roles of each of the parties in the process. Because on one hand, of course, we do have clients and customers who should focus their attention on building the comprehensive list of the requirements which are needed for the invoice process to work. And of course, this is easier said than done, because we all, when we come to the implementation, we always expect customers will just share the list, right? But it's never that easy, and the requirements are popping up constantly, and from all areas of the business. So it's very important to have the structured framework and we have developed such a framework which basically goes through each segment of the solution, and by this we are in fact guiding customer to really give us all the solutions and all the requirements, some that they didn't even think about at the beginning of the day. And of course, for this to be really successful, you need a proper mix of people on IT side of the customer. So some who understand the IT solution, not necessarily the VIM solution. Let's assume that VIM is very new, but at least the FI part, the finance part, and of course the part about the infrastructure, because this is very important. Because today, when customers are implementing VIM, they all want to have things into Fiori. They all want to have integrations, and all this is then much more than just the ECC exercise, because you do need to have all the infrastructure working together in the meaningful way, in the synchronous way. And of course, in order to have the good coverage from the customer side, you also need the business resources. And this is not only the management, but also the very hands-on people who will be involved from the beginning of the project, and who will then carry this project onwards and who will carry the system onwards after it has been implemented. Because very often we do see that there are different specialists being onboarded who are there for the sake of being on a project, but then afterwards they disappear and they leave the project, basically system, unattended, and then of course this has a negative consequences on the overall performance of the system, because nobody knows why certain things have been built in a way how they have been built, and why decisions have been done in a way how they have been done. So it's very important to have somebody in the project who will really carry on and the history and the story of why things have been done in a way they have been done. And of course, on our side, I mean, we do have a role that we take very seriously to challenge the requirements, to adhere to the VIM standard solutions, and also to explain the delivery process. Of course, when we talk about challenging the requirements, this is sometimes more than just saying, okay, but this is SAP standard. We believe we should figure out how to maybe deal with that or something like that. I mean, we are sometimes pretty strict around why, and we are strict in asking why standard is not good enough, right? Because very often customers are saying, hey, I mean, we just want to do it like this, right? And then we are really saying, okay, but let us show you the standard, because we do have a demo system where we can easily show this. And then we say, okay, why? Tell us exactly what does not work. So these are the some hints in terms of the what are our roles and responsibilities. Then if we go next to the delivery method and some points around the project planning, we can say that VIM implementation is by its nature a complex product and complex project. There are really many stakeholders and many business critical processes that are involved. I mean, if you just try to post the invoice with the price discrepancy or quantity discrepancy, you will most likely touch 3 or 4 different teams in the company. And of course, we do have to take all these points into the account when we are talking about the design of the product, because at the end of the day in VIM, it's not like in some of the other maybe older systems where you have a human in the box, right? And then this human decides who will do what. I mean, in VIM, you basically have to define all the workflows in advance in order to achieve automation that we talked at the beginning. So you basically do have to define as many routes of basically invoice as you possibly can. And only in that case you actually be successful in automating the entire process and documenting it in the right way. And the way how to do that is basically you have to be successful in understanding the work that has to be done during the implementation at a very granular level, because most of the developments that we do are quite easy, let's say, and simple. But on the other hand, there are some that are very complex. And of course, even if you talk about just a simple configuration, VIM has many options, right? I mean, you have very often customers come and say, I just want standard. I don't want anything else, just standard. But there are so many standard options, and VIM can be completely different product built by standard in customer A and in customer B. So it's very important to keep all these loose ends together. But in any case, when we talk about the build, we say the tasks have to be split into the daily increments. So if something is going beyond a day, we are looking how we can actually split it more in order to be able to predict the workload that is coming our way. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the visibility. I mean, for example, I have a small kids, and I very much like to play puzzles with them. And once we decide, okay, we will play puzzles, we take the box, and we basically take the puzzles out of the box. But I take all the puzzles. I don't leave some in the box. I take all the puzzles. But this is not all, right? Because puzzles are not probably all turned facing up, right? So some of them are just empty pieces of paper, and then I have to turn all of them up just to see what am I talking about. So I have to understand what is really my scope and how does it look like. And of course, if I have multiple puzzles in one box, which actually happens quite a lot, then I actually have to say, okay, I have to split different puzzles into different piles, because I have to make work manageable. And in the same way, we actually do this in the VIM project. If, for example, developer comes to me and tells me, hey, Mario, I need 5 days for this development, then I ask, but what will you do in these 5 days? Yeah? So 5 days is not good enough. I mean, you have to tell me how much you will spend on analysis. What will this be the first day? How much on the specific testing? So if he is stuck on the day 3, I know exactly where he should be on the day 3, and not, if I wouldn't ask this, then he would tell me I'm stuck, right? And then I ask, okay, but what are you stuck with? Yeah, I mean, and this of course creates the communication issues, and that's why it's much better to organize things beforehand. Yeah? This then allows for the easier scheduling and recovery of any delays or changes that get on the way. Maybe some, and then now, as I promised, I will talk about some evidence of this approach. Because we had one client that had their own legacy solution for approval of non-PO invoices, and they asked us to replicate that in VIM. because this is, frankly speaking, the easiest thing to do. You have something that you know works, and then you just say to the implementation partner, just do it in the same way. Then I don't have to explain anything to the users. How they should do differently. There are different Fiori apps, and all this is too complex for me. So just do it the way how I need it. Yeah? But then we challenged this because we said, this will be very costly solution, completely not standard, and let's do it in a way for us to enable the standard solution in a way how we believe and how we have seen with the other customers, and then we will show you this in the demo of the first sprint, and then you can give your feedback. And of course, if you don't like it and if it will not work, then we will of course build the standard solution. The customized solution, and that will pretty much cover your need. But after running with this standardized solution and running with multiple documents through it, they basically said, okay, but it actually works fine. You were right that this actually does cover our need, and it's not so much more complex for the users, or not at all more complex for the users. And they just said we need some small thing to adjust, which we then did in the second sprint, and then solution was actually ready for final testing together with all the other changes. And the result was basically the huge saving in the development and the test cost and the data maintenance, and we were just simply closer to the standard. Also, we have another case where we had a customer in Mexico, and they in Mexico you have to capture some data invoice references, which are normally not done in the OCR, and they were actually doing this completely manually and noting these references on the accounting document. And of course, then they created a custom report to show these texts on the accounting document per vendor and so on. And then they said, but we would like to capture this in OCR. So can you somehow automate this process? And then we said, yes, we can do that, but we would maybe prefer to go more on the standard route. And in the standard route, in essence, we said we can just capture everything in OCR, put it in the VIM fields, and then show all the data in the standard VIM reports, and that's for the ones that are dealing with VIM, that's VIM Analytics. Of course, there were still some adjustments done, but we didn't have to do very, very big developments in terms of transferring this to the accounting document. And this is also one more way how you can take something that is completely custom into something that is very, very close to the standard. And yeah, there are many examples, frankly speaking, where we are pulled into the implementations that didn't go the way that customers were hoping for, and very often this is because they have not been challenged in the right way to go with the proper solutions and just to be understood what do they actually need from VIM. So this would be my take on this one. If you have any more questions, just feel free to reach to us, and we'll be glad to discuss more. Do we have any questions? Okay, I can see that we have no questions. So thank you very much for your attention, and have a nice day.